My brother spread rumors that led to me being kicked out of my home during my teenage years. When I was a teenager, my brother spread rumors that ultimately led to me being expelled from our home. Now, at 28, having achieved success, my parents are demanding financial support from me. I'm a woman with an identical twin brother named Alex. From the beginning, our parents treated Alex and me completely differently. For some reason, they believed he was destined for greatness, while I was labeled the black sheep simply because I preferred academics, sports, and spending time with friends. Constant comparisons to Alex took a toll on my self-esteem and eroded my confidence. On our birthdays, Alex hosted extravagant parties with his friends, while I was always overlooked. He frequently had sleepovers, whereas I couldn't even bring a friend over. I despised my childhood. The only person who showed me any care was my grandmother, who would bring me my favorite sweets and occasionally give me some money to treat myself. Over time, our parents' favoritism towards Alex turned into emotional abuse directed at me. They ridiculed my grades and hobbies. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't live up to their ideal of the perfect child. Although I excelled in sports, they prohibited me from joining any clubs, insisting I focus solely on my studies like Alex. It was unbearable, and during my youth, I felt utterly helpless. In 9th grade, I was punished again, this time for creating a group chat on my phone. I hadn't done anything wrong. Just like other teenagers, I used an app to communicate with friends. But to my parents, it was a severe breach of trust. They caused a scene, scattered my belongings, and removed the door hinges, declaring that I had no right to a personal life while living under their roof. Instead of supporting me, Alex only made things worse. Taking advantage of our parents' unfair treatment, he began lying about me, accusing me of things I hadn't done to justify his own actions. He mocked me in front of my friends and spread rumors that I was bullying him at home because our parents favored him more. Even when alone, he would fake bruises, claiming they were from my supposed aggression. On my 14th birthday, Alex's jealousy reached its peak when no one attended his party. I don't know why his friends behaved that way, but my friends went out for ice cream with me, and I had a wonderful day. This enraged Alex, who retaliated by spreading false rumors about me at school, painting me as a spoiled girl. He lied that I was harassing him more, and that he was the one injuring himself to get bruises under his eyes or on his shoulders. The next day, he proudly came to school showing his injuries as proof of my alleged aggression, creating various fabricated stories. When our parents asked about the bruises, he lied, saying he got them while playing with friends. His stories about the bruises gained traction, and people started believing his distorted version of events. Rumors spread throughout the school, and even my friends began to view me with suspicion. Initially, I noticed subtle changes. Those who used to talk to me started distancing themselves, invitations to gatherings dwindled, as if someone had turned off a switch, and people began to shun the spoiled girl, accused of violence. One day, I mustered the courage to ask my former best friend why things had changed between us. She told me that Alex had been spreading various stories about me. She described the details of his false tales, accusing me of things I had never done. I was shocked by her words, a mix of disbelief and hurt, as if the ground had vanished beneath me. Alex, with whom I had grown up, was spreading lies about me, accusing me of things I couldn't even fathom. It was a betrayal that deeply wounded me, leaving a stone in my heart and a lump in my stomach. The next day, I approached him at school to talk, but he simply ignored me. I begged him to stop lying about me, but he just smirked and said I deserved to remain alone. I was speechless because his lies and behavior began to frighten me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but was afraid they would believe him over me. Isolation was especially painful because I had always been open to communication. It seemed that the lies fueled by Alex's jealousy were destroying me, as if I were living in a parallel reality where my true self was overshadowed by my own brother. These rumors went beyond simple teenage gossip, shaping everyone's opinion of me. The terrible rumors quickly reached the principal, and my worst nightmare became a reality. The principal called me and Alex to his office, along with our parents, to discuss all these stories. I sat there with my heart pounding, hoping Alex would finally tell the truth. Instead, he doubled down on his lies, telling the principal that the rumors were true and portraying me as a bully who beat him when our parents weren't home. I couldn't believe it. I was overwhelmed by shock as Alex continued to weave his distorted tales, claiming I was angry with him because our parents loved him more. It was all lies, but he clung to his version like a leech. My mother cried as she listened to Alex's story, hugging him as if he were a hero. My father tried to calm him down, saying he was brave for coming forward and that he would ensure nothing like this would happen again. Of course, I tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal to believe that it was all fabricated. It felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, struggling to surface. But Alex insisted that I was angry, aggressive, and prone to daily outbursts. The condemning looks felt like I was fighting against an impassable wall of fabricated stories. The principal sternly reprimanded me, saying that the school would not tolerate such behavior and that it was grounds for suspension. I begged him not to suspend me, but he just shook his head, saying he couldn't turn a blind eye. I stood there with tears in my eyes, trying to explain that I hadn't done anything wrong, but the principal firmly stated that I would be suspended for 10 days, so that others would understand that such behavior is unacceptable. I cried even harder, literally begging him to reconsider. My parents, furious and humiliated by the situation, dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to prove my innocence and make them understand. But they didn't care. We left the school, and I was in a state of depression, overwhelmed with humiliation and despair. When we returned home, something unexpected happened. My father suddenly started packing my things. I was shocked, confused, and didn't understand what was happening. My mother asked him what he was doing, but he shouted that he couldn't let me live under the same roof with Alex anymore. I literally fell to my knees, begging Alex to tell the truth, but he remained cold and indifferent to my emotions. My father continued packing my things and threw a suitcase into the hallway. I clung to my father's legs, still pleading with him not to kick me out, but he told me that someone like me didn't deserve to live in his house, and added that he would ask my grandmother if she wanted to take me in. It felt like the world around me had collapsed. I stood in shock, surrounded by my belongings scattered in the hallway, evicted from my own home. Eventually, my grandmother arrived. She gathered all my things and helped me load them into the car, seating me in the front seat to ensure I was buckled up. She approached our house, rang the doorbell, and when my father answered, she began yelling at him for his treatment of me. With firm determination, she threatened that if he approached me again or tried to contact me, she would involve the police or child welfare services, as what he did was a criminal offense, and he could be prosecuted. My mother tried to shift the blame onto me, but my grandmother wouldn't listen. She steadfastly protected me, emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve such harsh treatment. It was the first time in my life that I realized how strong my grandmother was. She wasn't afraid of my parents and, unlike them, believed me. In the end, we left, leaving behind my home, the only place I had ever lived. I can't put into words the unbearable pain I felt then. I remember crying on the bed and refusing to eat despite my grandmother's pleas. I told her what Alex had done, and she was shocked too. She assured me that she believed my version of events, and I was happy that at least one person was on my side. When the 10-day suspension ended, the prospect of returning to school felt like a step into a predator's den. I walked through the familiar corridors and saw my classmates' expressions of judgment, whispers, and sideways glances. False accusations hung in the air. Alex brazenly ignored me, pretending I didn't exist. He made friends among those who believed his lies and saw him as a victim of my alleged attacks. No matter how hard I tried to share my truth, no one wanted to listen. I became an outcast, forever branded with an unfair label that haunted me everywhere, in classrooms, the cafeteria, and hallways. The looks I received were full of disdain and distrust. I became a loner, head bowed, attending all my classes, eating lunch alone in the cafeteria, and going straight home after classes. I had no friends, and it seemed like no one wanted to have me around. During all this time, my parents never called to check on me. My grandmother constantly reminded me that it wasn't my fault, and that things would get better over time. I graduated from school with good grades and eagerly awaited college, hoping to start a new, better life. Only when I went to study at university did I feel freedom for the first time. No one was watching my every step, no one was comparing my grades, and no one was competing with me. I met many people, made friends with those who shared my interests. Despite the emotional and physical scars I had endured over the years because of my family and peers, I focused on leaving it all behind and enjoying student life as much as possible. During this period, I discovered a talent for writing. I had always wanted to become a writer, but wasn't sure if I could make a living from it, so I gave up that dream. However, to earn some money, I decided to try freelancing. I registered on several freelance platforms, which helped me get orders from clients. Gradually, I began to build my portfolio. Throughout my university years, I worked on freelance projects and never asked my parents for money. After graduating, instead of getting a desk job in an office and working for a corporation, I realized I could pursue writing full-time. Things went well, thanks to numerous clients and long-term professional relationships, which led to new projects. Thanks to a successful freelance career, I not only became financially independent, but also was able to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped me heal the emotional wounds from the past, although it wasn't easy. I saved as much money as possible and decided to take a risk by believing in myself. Over the years, I saw many amazing places, although much remained unexplored. The only person I truly considered my family was my grandmother, and I adored her. She was sad when I left, but she understood that I needed to become independent. Despite my busy schedule, I always tried to find time for her. I visited her on weekends. We often cooked together or just sat on the porch, talking about childhood or the latest weekend events. During weekends, I devoted myself to household chores or accompanied her to the local park for leisurely walks. Recently, I completed one of the most important projects in my career. I can't name the brand, but I was incredibly lucky to write articles and product descriptions for them. After finishing the project, I asked the team I worked with to leave positive reviews on my platforms, and they gladly did so. I took screenshots of some reviews and posted them on my Instagram, understanding that working with such a brand was a significant achievement. As expected, many other copywriters congratulated me on my success and even reposted my stories to help spread the word. As a result, I began receiving messages from strangers who needed help with their websites. My relatives noticed this too, and some of them reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, the director of my university contacted me. He saw that I was doing well and wanted to invite me to conduct a seminar for students on building a copywriting career. I was very nervous since public speaking wasn't my strong suit, but I decided to take the risk and agreed. When I stood before an audience with interested faces, sharing my experience, I felt like my life had come full circle and returned to the starting point. In my speech, I talked about the difficulties I faced and how I worked hard to support myself despite the tough days. It was a very satisfying experience to inspire others and contribute to the development of the author community. Some recordings of my speech started spreading in Facebook groups as people found them resonant. It was gratifying to finally receive recognition for my work. Last week, I was invited to appear on a local TV channel. It was a program about the copywriting profession, and I was asked to share my experience and insights with the audience. I was a bit nervous but happy for the opportunity. On the show, I talked about my journey, the importance of reviews and clients, and how a simple thank you post can open doors to incredible opportunities. I was very inspired by the chance to reach a broader audience and inspire more people in this field. When the show aired, I shared some highlights on my Instagram, proud that I had been invited to TV. That's how my relatives began to learn about my career success, as my parents never told anyone about me. Therefore, they didn't know that I was working with well-known brands and appearing on television. The rumors quickly reached my relatives and, presumably, my parents as well. A few days later, while working on another project with my phone on silent mode, I noticed 6 missed calls from my mother. Honestly, I was shocked to see her name on the screen, as it had been many years since she last called me. After all those years of silence, I couldn't understand why she suddenly decided to call. Reluctantly, I returned her call, and she answered immediately. I asked if everything was okay, and my mother began congratulating me. My father, who was probably sitting next to her, joined the conversation, asking about my life and health. I answered their questions without giving it much thought. It didn't seem strange until they started asking how much I earned. I replied that it was none of their business, to which my father said that we are family and I shouldn't be ashamed to tell them about my income. I said that my finances were fine. Hearing this, my mother started complaining about how hard they had been living lately. I frowned, suspecting something was wrong. Here's how our conversation went further. Mom, we're already retired and have long wanted to renovate the house. It's not in the best condition, and we've run out of savings. Okay, Mom, your success gave us hope. After watching your interview on TV today, we thought maybe you could pay for the renovation. Dad, after all, we're family. You don't need to spend time thinking about sharing your income with us. We really need your help. Are you kidding? Why are you asking me for money when you haven't talked to me for years? I don't know what made you reach out. Thank you, of course, for the congratulations, but I'm not going to help you. After that, my mother started saying that I was selfish and that they needed to take care of themselves. That was the least I could do for them. I was so angry that I wanted to tell them everything I thought. Suddenly, an idea came to mind. Instead of just arguing with them, I should teach them a lesson once and for all. Since they decided they could use me after treating me badly all these years, I told my parents that I was willing to help them, but only under one condition. My father curiously asked what the condition was. Without hesitation, I stated my demand. If they wanted my help, they had to publicly acknowledge in front of relatives and friends that Alex had fabricated all those lies that destroyed my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate Alex just as they had humiliated me by believing his lies and manipulations. I wanted them to take responsibility for their actions and realize the pain they had caused me. Upon hearing my impossible condition, my father began to doubt whether such an acknowledgement was necessary. My mother said it was entirely unnecessary, and that we could discuss everything privately without others. But I stood my ground. The condition was non-negotiable and mandatory for receiving any help they wanted from me. As the tension grew, my father raised his voice, reminding me that he was my father and emphasizing that it was my duty to help the family when they needed it. My mother, in a desperate attempt to convince me, insisted that I should do the right thing and help, citing the years they had spent raising me. I couldn't help but notice the irony in their sudden plea. I reminded them of the past, that they were the ones who kicked me out of the house, and that my grandmother, not them, had raised me. They began to get angrier, but I firmly stated that if they wanted to mend our relationship and seek financial help, the truth had to be publicly acknowledged, and Alex had to take responsibility for his actions. After this conversation, my parents constantly tried to call me, but I ignored them. I began to regret ever calling them that day. Now I'm curious, would I be a monster if I didn't help my parents? So, what would you respond to the author of this story? Please write your thoughts in the comments, and we will move on to the updates to find out how this story ended. Update 1. It has been a whirlwind week since I shared my story, and the support I received from everyone has been overwhelming. I feel reassured knowing that everyone agrees I shouldn't communicate with my parents or even consider helping them after what they did to me. The reason I set such conditions was that I knew it was almost impossible for them to accept the truth. I know they love Alex too much, and even if they realized he was lying, they would never make him go through what they did to me. Today, after my parents tried to contact me again and I didn't answer, my dear little brother sent me a disgusting message. Here's what he wrote. Hi sis, long time no see. I can say that every day without you in my life has been great. I heard that mom and dad are with you, and you set some crazy condition for them. You know they will never agree to that. Yes, they never loved you and will never do anything to harm me. I admit I lied to you 15 years ago, but a lot of time has passed since then. So stop being selfish and try to forget the past. You're not married and have no children, so why not help them by paying for the house renovation? Do the right thing and become a good daughter. This message was like a punch to the chest. His audacity in devaluing my suffering and the conditions I set showed his complete lack of empathy. His attempt to instill guilt in me because of my family status added another layer of insult. His assumption that I should put them above my own well-being was not only offensive, but also highlighted how little he valued me. Feeling upset and determined to seek justice, I realized it was time to take matters into my own hands and reveal the truth that had been hidden for so long. I sat down to write a letter to my parents and close relatives, detailing the painful specifics of my childhood and the unfair treatment I received in our family. In the letter, I described the strict and oppressive atmosphere I lived in and how I was constantly compared to Alex. I also elaborated on the malicious and completely false rumors Alex spread about me at school, which led to serious consequences and ruined my reputation. I wrote about how our parents kicked me out and how, if it weren't for my grandmother, I might no longer be alive. At the end, I asked everyone to read the message my brother sent me, attaching a screenshot where he admitted he lied. It was an obvious confession that I hoped would expose the long-standing lies. I sent the letter just an hour ago and am confident that once my parents and brother read it, real chaos will begin. Next time, I'll share how my family reacted to this letter. Update 2. A month has passed since my last update, and a lot has happened during this time. As expected, after receiving my letter, chaos erupted in the family. My parents faced criticism from relatives who previously didn't know about the extent of the unequal treatment and emotional abuse. Many relatives contacted me, saying they had no idea what was happening and apologized for not supporting me when I needed it. Alex and our parents began to bombard me with a stream of messages that became increasingly insulting and threatening. Therefore, I turned to a lawyer who said cease and desist notices, stating that any further attempts to contact me would result in serious legal consequences. It seems this scared them because they stopped trying to reach out to me. My grandmother believes I did the right thing by telling everyone the truth and supports me 100%. She is the only person who matters to me, and I'm glad she's on my side. Update 3. 2 months have passed, and I'm happy to report that everything is going well professionally. My copywriting business is thriving. I continue to receive invitations to seminars and podcasts, which strengthen my reputation in this field. My relationship with my grandmother remains very close. Recently, I took a short vacation to spend more time with her. She has taken up gardening and has told me a lot about the flowers and herbs she grows. The moments I spend with her, whether it's cooking together, having heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, have become some of my most cherished and valuable memories. My family hasn't contacted me since receiving the letter from my lawyer, so I'm content with how things are going. I also started attending psychotherapy and hope it will help me heal the emotional wounds. In general, write your opinion about this story. You can also share yours in the comments. It will be interesting to read. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Your support is very important to me. Take care of yourself.